The first scream didn't come from the passengers. It came from the cockpit. Seat 8A jolted as the plane shuddered, a low metallic groan rippling through the cabin like an animal in pain. A man asleep there jerked awake, heart hammering, instinct flaring before memory did. His hand gripped the armrest, knuckles white, as his eyes snapped open and scanned the cabin with a precision he hadn't used in years. Oxygen masks hadn't dropped. People were murmuring, confused but not yet afraid. But he knew that sound. He knew that feeling in his bones. Then the captain's voice cracked through the intercom, not calm, not rehearsed, but raw. Is there any combat pilot on board? For a split second, the cabin froze. The man in seat 8A closed his eyes. His name was Daniel Harper, and once, long ago, that question had been his entire life. Daniel hadn't planned to sleep. He never did on flights. But exhaustion has a way of sneaking up on single parents, especially those juggling 2 jobs, parent-teacher meetings, and the quiet ache of trying to be enough for someone who depended on you completely. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was curled up beside him, her head resting against his arm, clutching a frayed stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. She trusted him with the kind of faith that made his chest ache. They were flying to Denver for a fresh start. Or at least that's what Daniel told himself. A new city, a new job inspecting electrical systems for commercial buildings, cheaper rent, better schools. A place where nobody knew his past, where he didn't have to explain the way his eyes sometimes tracked exits or why sudden noises made his shoulders tense. The past stayed quiet while he slept. Until it didn't. The captain spoke again, urgency sharpening every word. We've lost partial control. First officer is incapacitated. If there's anyone with military flight experience, please identify yourself to the crew immediately. A wave of fear surged through the cabin now. Someone gasped. A woman began to cry softly. Lily stirred, blinking sleep from her eyes. Daddy, she whispered. What's happening? Daniel forced his face into calm. Just a little turbulence, sweetheart. It was a lie, but it was the kind parents tell when the truth would only steal a child's sense of safety. His mind raced. He hadn't flown a jet in nearly 9 years. He hadn't touched a combat aircraft since the night everything changed. Since the mission that ended his career, his marriage, and the part of himself that believed bravery came without cost. The flight attendant hurried down the aisle, her smile tight, eyes darting. She stopped near him, scanning faces. Sir, she said, voice trembling despite her effort, do you have any flight experience? Daniel hesitated. In that pause lived every doubt he'd carried since leaving the Air Force. Every night he'd woken drenched in sweat. Every moment he'd wondered if he was still the man he used to be, or just a shadow trying to raise a daughter on memories of courage. Lily looked up at him, her small hand tightening around his sleeve. You're a pilot, she said softly, like it was the simplest thing in the world. He swallowed. I was. The attendant's eyes widened. Combat? He nodded once. She didn't ask anything else. She grabbed the intercom. Captain, we have a former combat pilot in seat 8A. Every head turned. Daniel kissed Lily's forehead, breathing in the scent of shampoo and safety and home. I need you to stay right here, okay? Hold Mr. Buttons. Count to 100 if you get scared. Her eyes filled with tears. Are you coming back? He smiled, the kind of smile that promised strength even when fear clawed at his ribs. Always. The cockpit was chaos contained by discipline. Alarms blared. Warning lights pulsed like heartbeats gone wrong. The captain, a graying man with sweat beading on his brow, looked both relieved and desperate when Daniel stepped inside. Thank God, he said. I'm Captain Reynolds. Daniel strapped into the jump seat with practiced efficiency. His hands moved before his thoughts caught up, muscle memory rising from years of training. He scanned instruments, his mind slipping into a familiar, razor-focused calm. What happened? Daniel asked. Autopilot failure. Severe turbulence knocked out several systems. First officer collapsed, possible cardiac event. We're flying blind on some instruments. Daniel nodded. Okay. Let's stabilize first. For the first time in years, he felt useful in a way that went beyond providing and protecting. This wasn't about fixing a sink or packing lunches. This was about trust, his own, and everyone else's. As they worked, memories surfaced unbidden. Night sorties over hostile terrain. The weight of responsibility when lives depended on his decisions. The moment his wife had begged him to quit after he came home changed, quieter, distant. He'd quit eventually. Too late to save the marriage. Just in time to save Lily from growing up without a father. The plane lurched violently, dropping several hundred feet. The captain swore. Daniel leaned in. I've got you. We've got this. He guided Reynolds through compensating for the lost systems, adjusting trim manually, reading the plane through vibrations and sound as much as sight. Outside, the storm raged, clouds swallowing the horizon. Inside, two men fought to keep a metal tube full of strangers alive. In the cabin, Lily clutched her rabbit and counted. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat soaked Daniel's shirt. His jaw ached from clenching. But slowly, control returned. Not perfect, never perfect, but enough. Air traffic control crackled through the headset, guiding them toward an emergency landing. A long runway. Fire crews standing by. You think we can make it? The captain asked, voice hoarse. Daniel thought of Lily's laugh. Of bedtime stories. Of the promise he'd made beside a tiny hospital bed 7 years ago, when her mother slipped away quietly, leaving him with grief and a miracle. Yes, he said. I know we can. The descent was brutal. The landing gear protested. Passengers screamed as the runway rushed up to meet them. Then, impact. A bone-jarring slam, followed by another. Tires screamed. The plane skidded, veered, then straightened. Finally, impossibly, it slowed. Silence fell. For one heartbeat, nobody moved. Then applause erupted, ragged, tearful, grateful. People hugged strangers. Some prayed. Some just sobbed. Daniel exhaled, every muscle trembling. You saved us, the captain said quietly. Daniel shook his head. We did. He walked back into the cabin on unsteady legs. Lily broke free from her seatbelt and ran into his arms, burying her face against his chest. You came back, she said, voice muffled. Always, he whispered, holding her like he might never let go. Passengers reached out, touching his arm, thanking him, some with words, some with tears. To them, he was a hero. But as he sat back in seat 8A, Lily asleep against him once more, Daniel understood something deeper. Heroism isn't about uniforms or medals or past glories. It's about showing up when fear tells you to hide. It's about using what you know, even when you're tired, even when you're broken, because someone else needs you. He had thought his best days were behind him. That he was just a single dad scraping by, doing his best in a world that didn't pause for grief. But at 35,000 feet, when the captain asked for help, life had reminded him who he was, and who he could still be. As emergency lights flashed outside and the doors finally opened, Daniel kissed Lily's hair and smiled. Sometimes, the thing that wakes you from sleep isn't danger. Sometimes, it's purpose calling you back home.